This is the district's vision. The South Orange Maplewood School District will be a top-performing, diverse, suburban school district in the nation. And this is the mission statement. The mission is to prepare each and every student, regardless of demographic or socioeconomic background, for post-secondary educational success, and to educate all students to be responsible and productive members of the global society at large, and especially caring, collaborative, and ethical people, critical thinkers and problem solvers, effective writers and speakers, thoughtful consumers, and producers of media, and lifelong learners. So why are we here? Like Mr. Stern said, the district was cited by the Office of Civil Rights for having an underrepresentation of African American students in the high school's AP courses. And this information was gathered during the 2013 and 2014 school years. They also were cited by the ACLU by having an overrepresentation of minorities in receiving disciplinary referrals and receiving suspensions. So we also are going to be looking at that data too, but I didn't bring anything to address that data tonight, but that is something else that we're going to be looking into. So again, why are we here? To address these disparities by gathering data and sharing the data with the district, stakeholders, which all of you are, including administrators, teachers, parents, and students, determining courses of action for the district at every level, development of action plans, recommending and providing professional development, systemic monitoring of action plans to ensure that goals and objectives are being implemented. So, tonight's focus. As parents and community members, you are an integral part of your child's education. As a stakeholder, it's important for you to identify district strengths, weaknesses, and we can come together to develop goals and objectives to move this agenda along. This is some quick snapshot data. This is how African American students compare to white students on the HESPA, which was the graduation requirement actually ending this year, because any seniors who didn't pass have to pass this year in order to graduate. So this is the last year of HESPA because, of course, you know we're now going to Park. So I know it's kind of small, but it's 2012, 2013, and 2014. And this is how students scored in advanced proficient for English language arts and math. The blue represents the white students. 30% of white students during the 2012 school year scored advanced proficient on the ELA, and only 10% of African American students. 36% in 2013, 13% African American students, and 48% in 2014, and 28% of African American students. So as you can see, there's some disparity in terms of how African Americans score on at the advanced proficient level. And for those of you who don't know, advanced proficient is scoring a 250 or higher on the ELA portion of the HESPA. For math, the disparities are the same. For math, it's 33% in 2012, 11% for African Americans, 36% in 2013, and 9% for African Americans, 48 again, and 28 for math. So you can see the gaps sometimes are 3 times as much in some cases in a couple of years, and sometimes 2 times as much, but it's a significant gap. I did not put the partially proficient range, but the range in the scores of students receiving partially proficient for African American and whites is significant as well. So you have a difficulty on both ends of the spectrum. Percentage of students participating in AP courses. The blue represents the white students that participate in AP courses, and this is for the last 3 years. All of this information was taken from the district's State of the District plan. It's on the website. 2012, 42% white students took 1 or more AP classes, 9% African Americans. 45% in 2013, 11% African Americans, and 47% in 2014, and 13% African Americans. So again, you see it's 2 to 3 times as many students that are even taking advantage of taking AP courses. And we'll get into some of the reasons why a little bit later. Mrs. Aaron, we had an opportunity to meet with the administration from both of the middle schools as well as the administration from the high school. And Mrs. Aaron informed us that this year there's an increase of 20% of African American students taking AP classes now. Now, as we get further into this project and as we begin to share data, we will share which classes have the higher amounts. But for the purpose of tonight, I just wanted to give you guys an overview of the data. But as we go on, we'll get deeper into the data in terms of what courses. At the high school, I believe now, Ms. Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 21 courses that are offered, AP courses? Okay, so there are 21 courses that are offered at the high school at this time. Graduation rate. Now, South Orange Maplewood has always had a very high graduation rate, 98%, 97% throughout the years. And the federal government decided to change the calculation of the graduation rate about 3 years ago, 2012. And what used to happen when you had a graduating class, if you had 400 students, if 350 of them graduated, then the way you calculated your rate was the number of students that graduated by the number of seniors. So that was the old calculation. Total number of students in the senior class divided by the number of actual black graduates. The new calculation is the number of students that started during a certain year and finished 4 years later. So students are gathered by a cohort. So if a cohort of students started in 2010 and it was 500, then in 2014, they expect that 500 to graduate. Now, in a district like South Orange Maplewood, you don't have the issue of mobility of students moving in and out of the district a lot. So you pretty much have maintained your graduation rate over the years. But those are some of the things that will affect the graduation rate. The other thing that affects your graduation rate is the number of special ed students that you have, because they're calculated into that graduation rate as well. And as we know, special ed students can stay in school until they're 21. So this is the graduation rate over 4 years comparing white students to African American students. In 2011, 98% for white students, 88% for black students. 92% and 82%, 98% and 84%, and 2014, 95% and 91%. Now, many may say that, well, that's not so bad in terms of the numbers. They're still in the 80s and the 90s. But the issue is, if for each of those years, if you had a class of 450 and your class of African Americans was a good number, any given year you might have 40 to 50 students of color that aren't graduating. So over 4 years, you now have possibly 100 students who haven't graduated. So what has happened to those students? Do we know? So that's a question that we need to ask the district. What happened to those students that didn't graduate with their cohort? Because getting a GED doesn't count, so it still counts against your graduation rate if they drop out or anything like that. So we have to look at the New Jersey SMART data and see what happened to those students as well. So tonight what we're going to do is we want to hear from